What is up, everyone? How's it going? This is Waj. Hope you guys are all doing well, and I'm really excited to bring you guys a late 2018 4K gaming / workstation grade PC build guide. We're going to be taking a look at some of the latest, greatest hardware from Intel, Gigabyte, Nvidia, as well as Cooler Master. Now, first things first, let's talk about the processor. We're going to be using the Core i5 9700K CPU. This is an 8-core chip with 8 threads. It's very similar to the 9900K CPU, but that one has hyper-threading enabled, and we have a boost frequency about 4.9 gigahertz. But since this has an unlock multiplier, and since we have this ML240R from Cooler Master, we should be able to overclock this thing well beyond 5 gigahertz. Now, in terms of the motherboard, we're using the Gigabyte Z390 Gaming X. This is a very bare bones essential motherboard, but it has everything we need. Since we're only going to be using one GPU and only a couple of hard drives, this is going to be more than enough to fit our needs. Plus, it's under $130, so you can't complain too much. Now, in terms of RAM, we're going to be using 32 gigs of Corsair LPX memory, clocked in around 3000 megahertz. We have 8 gigabyte sticks over here, but if you're going to buy it new, probably get the 16 gigabyte sticks instead, but this is what we have for the time being. Furthermore, we're going to be doing a dual drive configuration, so I'm going to install the OS onto the Plextor 500 gigabyte SSD, and our long-term storage is going to be stored on our 5 terabyte Toshiba mechanical hard drive. Now, building the system is going to be pretty easy thanks to the Mastercase SL600M from Cooler Master. We're going to begin with taking out all the unnecessary aluminum panels, and our PSU is actually the EVGA Supernova 750 watt bronze certified. It's an oldie but a goodie, something I've been using for years, and we're going to mount it vertically in the top right hand corner where it goes on the case. Next, we're going to be installing our motherboard assembly with our CPU and RAM already installed. After that, we're going to mount our CPU cooler, and this brings us to the GPU. We're going to be using the EVGA GeForce RTX 2080 Black Edition. Now, this GPU was on sale for $699, and it came with Battlefield 5, so at that price, it's probably one of the best deals for RTX 2080 around right now. So if you can still snag one up for that price, I definitely recommend that. And we are going to be overclocking the GPU, so we should be able to get a decent amount of performance out of it for even 4K gaming. And our grand total for the PC is around $2157 without the operating system. And if you were not lucky enough to get the GPU on sale, it usually sells for around $760, which is still pretty competitive for a 2080. You're looking around $2217, but this is the specific price that I paid for the components. Okay, so it's actually been a couple of days since we initially finished the build. I've been doing a lot of testing during that time, and I want to kind of demonstrate some of the unique attributes about the Cooler Master SL600M case. Let's just take off this glass panel over here, otherwise known as the fingerprint magnet. And one of the big trends about new cases these days is that they're rearranging the power supply to be mounted in a different location. In this instance over here, it's mounted vertically on the top right-hand corner, and this kind of frees up the bottom area for better airflow. So in this instance, we have two 200 millimeter fans pulling air from the bottom all the way to the top. And this aluminum panel over here can either be raised, like what we have it over here, or removed completely for better ventilation and airflow. Now, the case also features a rotatable PCI Express bracket, so you can mount the GPU in this orientation, 90 degrees facing towards the glass. If you want to showcase the GPU, you are going to need a PCI Express riser for that. I'm not too big a fan of this orientation because, one, the support over here, and plus I don't like the fact that I can see that PCI Express riser. It'd probably look a little bit better integrated in its position in line with the actual motherboard, so I'll probably go back to that, but I'm just using this configuration for demonstration purposes. At the top, you can see that we have the ML240R water block mounted upside down. Now, back in the day, I would have to reconfigure this whole thing, but thanks to the Cooler Master design of this removable logo plate over here, we can reorientate this in any direction we want, which is definitely a convenient factor and handy nonetheless. Now, in terms of the overclock setting for our 9700K, we mildly overclocked it to 5.2 gigahertz. The stock frequency turbos up to 4.9, and we had to up the voltage to 1.395 volts. And this mild overclock actually demonstrated some decent performance gains. So on Cinebench R15, the stock frequency, you're getting around 1497.9 points versus with our overclock setting at 5.2 gigahertz, we got 1682, which is one of the fastest I've ever experienced with an 8-core CPU from Intel specifically. And the same thing kind of goes for our Geekbench results, where we're getting about a 4 to 5% increase, both in terms of our multi-core processing and single-core performance, which is definitely pretty cool. Furthermore, in terms of our GPU overclock, we use EVGA's Precision X1 utility, and you can scan to get the most optimal frequencies for your core and memory settings. This setting resulted in an in-game boost frequency of around 2000 megahertz compared to the 18,000 or so megahertz from the factory settings. So that's a decent little difference. And if you take a look at our TimeSpy benchmark, both in terms of Quad HD and Ultra HD resolutions, you're seeing anywhere between a 4 to 5% increase, which is again a nice little bump compared to just rolling with the stock frequencies. Now lastly, we're just going to go over our real world gaming benchmarks at 4K resolution, ultra settings. We're going to take a look at Battlefield 5, of course, and a couple of other titles. That way you guys have some sort of idea in terms of how this thing compares, and we'll also give you guys the overclock settings as well as the stock frequencies on the GPU. So let's get right into that. But really, other than that, guys, that's really it. Now, certainly for around $2,200, you can probably get a more powerful system if you shop around and buy used, certainly. But I think in terms of brand new, latest generation components, this is definitely a fair deal nonetheless. And I'm pretty excited to do a lot of 4K gaming with it. I also have that ultra wide screen monitor that I'm going to be pairing this thing up with. So that's going to be pretty fun, not to mention some of the VR capabilities that this thing will probably perform pretty well in. And perhaps down the road, I'll add another RTX 2080, or perhaps upgrade to a 2080 Ti. And definitely one thing I'm going to do right away is get a nice M.2 drive, or maybe even Intel Optane, because the old 500 gigabyte SSD that I have over here is definitely kind of slow and dated, and there's better stuff out there. That's kind of what I'm working with it right now. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the system. Let me know if you have any specific questions, and check out the description for all the details and product links down below. Keep in mind, if you use any more Amazon affiliate links, that helps support this channel, makes all this stuff possible. And I want to thank you guys so much for watching, so much for your support. Make sure you have notifications turned on. That way you can watch our videos once they become uploaded. It's kind of a problem that we've been having where people are not getting our videos in time. So definitely make sure you have that notification turned on. Other than that, thanks again for watching. We'll see you later. Take care.